Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to be talking about goldfish and the Anoxic filtration system. That's coming up next. Okay, goldfish and the Anoxic filtration system. I watched a video of a young woman who has a lot of followers on her YouTube channel. She had goldfish for 10 years and she complained that they keep dying, they get swim bladder, disease problems, everything else. And I watch her channel occasionally. Not all the time, but occasionally I watch her because she had goldfish. Well, she doesn't have goldfish. And I just watched her channel where she basically tells people, if you don't like her new channel that she has, move on. There's plenty of channels out there that have goldfish. The problem is every time she set up something, and I saw she had a big pool, it was a big blue pool, and she had sponge filters in it and everything else, and that got wiped out. They all died. And she went to Dandy Aranda's and bought her fish, and all she had was troubles with everything she did. And after 10 years, she finally gave it up, and she gave the excuse about hybrids, blah, blah, blah. Well, hybrids are all over the place, and you can't dish something because of hybrids, but she makes it that these animals, they're bred so touchy that they wind up dying. And it's true. They are. And I went through the same thing she went through. So I know what she's going through. After 10 years, she gave up. But she did the same thing repetitively, thinking she was going to come up with different results. And of course, she didn't. Like all of us who are in this hobby, we thought we were doing everything right, and we couldn't keep our goldfish. And I lost goldfish too. I was the same way as her years and years ago. Lost some very expensive, very nice goldfish, getting sick, swim bladder, dropsy, you name it, and it's very discouraging. But it's just one of those things that no matter how much filtration system I had, and believe me, I had a big under gravel filter, I had hang on the back filters, I did everything I could to keep those fish alive, and still they died. And this is discouraging to people because this is a big market, these fish, and they're very expensive when you want to buy bigger fish like this. You can expect to spend at a quality store to buy decent quality fish. You're going to expect to spend $80 to $150 a fish. That's a lot of money. If you want show quality or even higher quality of that, expect this $250, $350 easy per fish. But if you can't keep them alive, what good is it? So I see most people, they buy little bitty fish when they're young because they're a little easier to keep than when you get bigger fish. And they seem to die or they seem to get sick. So I see, I smell what she's stepping in. She's finally given up because I did everything right. Well, the fact of it is she didn't do everything right. After 10 years, she kept repeating the same thing she did previously and thought she would get different results, and she didn't. Same thing with all of us, though. I'm not picking on her or anything. Everybody does it. You think you're doing everything right. That's why over 30 plus years ago, I started this research with the Anoxic filtration system. It wasn't because tropical fish, it was because of goldfish, my love of goldfish. And one of the reasons I started this is to keep these guys alive. There was no reason why, if I'm doing everything right, why is it coming out all wrong? And like she said, it doesn't become enjoyable if your fish keep dying. That's not an enjoyable hobby because you pay a lot of money for these fish just to have them and die. There are certain fish you're going to stay away from that I have stayed away from because they look okay, but they're just not my cup of tea. But like the ranchus here or lion heads, I like them. But what good is it to spend a lot of money on them and they just wind up dying on you? That definitely is no good. And that's what would happen. No matter how skilled you are, they're going to wind up dying on you. And very quickly, or getting sick, like she said. And after I watched that video, I thought I would do this video because most people, including myself, repetitively did the same thing that we tried and thought we would get different results. And finally, I gave it up. That doesn't work. We need to think of something different. We need to think of a new way of doing something. What I had found out is like your plenum here and your Anoxic filtration system, your BCB baskets. What I had found out, and this is the reason I had goldfish like these for 15, 17-year-old goldfish, is because they got switched over to using an Anoxic filtration system, not a sponge, not putting a little bit of substrate down and using a sponge. That's repeating your mistake. Because I found out that goldfish need very high quality water. They need least amount of nitrates as you can give them. They need the least amount of stress. This morning, I checked out my 90-gallon. It was 365 with the Redox at 365. The canister filter hasn't been cleaned in over 2 months. That could explain why maybe the Redox is a little lower than 375, but the Redox may go up in the evening as CO2 gets injected and the lights turn on. Then the Redox will go up. But the Redox was 365. I tested this tank right here this morning, 375. That means this tank is full of oxidizers, oxidizing their waste. And goldfish are messy. So you need a very high Redox with goldfish. And people don't understand that. They don't understand the science behind keeping goldfish healthy. Goldfish, these came in from California. And it says on the thing they may have red fins, they may have other problems because they've been shipped, they went through a lot of stress. And these guys have a little bit red in their fins, but they're healing. And if you remember the story I told you about a goldfish that got caught in a strainer, and it got caught into a surface strainer. He got into the big pond, and it got caught in the surface strainer. It got beaten up to definitely. It was. I thought it was dead. I pulled it out, and I thought he's good as gone. But I thought, what the hell? He's still alive. He's still breathing. I threw him in where the goldfish were in the goldfish pond, and he recovered like nothing was wrong. No chemicals, no nothing. And the reason he recovered is because they do have an immune system, but you have to give goldfish a chance. And if you're going to keep using sponge filters, if you're going to keep putting a little bit of substrate down and not use a little bit of science that we know today, you're not going to keep your goldfish alive very long without getting sick and dying. Just like this woman. She complained. That's all they do is get sick and die. I have to agree with her because I did the same thing for years. I lost hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars even of goldfish, all because I did it the way you were told to do it. But by using a plenum with clay and substrate laterite, by putting BCB bags in the filter and everything else, I beat it. Now, there's one thing I found out, that little by little in a BCB basket or in these bags, I noticed, and I'll show you a picture, a little bit of that kitty litter, that clay gets expelled little by little into the aquarium or into the pond through the years. It gets expelled. And when the fish eat, they take in a little bit of that clay. And we found out that a lot of people will put clay in their koi ponds to keep their koi healthy. something in the clay that helps the goldfish. And nobody really knows what the clay is doing, but it seems like there's something in their diet that they need to have a little bit of that clay constantly going into the water. And when they suck in the food, that's all with the water on it, it has that clay. If you look at the lily pipe, the picture I'm showing you, you can see little particulate of clay in that lily pipe, which is being blown out from the filter from the BCB baskets. Now this is very minute. You can't see the clay in there, but there's something to do with using that kitty litter, or if you're going to use oil dryer or anything, that clay, that has something to do with it. Another thing is something to do with the clay taking out the ions. Something is bothering these goldfish that other filtration systems can't deal with. With an Anoxic filtration system could deal with it. Just like the tank you see here has a redox of over 375. Now, these are big fish, and they're producing a lot more waste than even that 90-gallon aquarium is. But it doesn't mean that they don't have a little damage on them. The Ryunkin here, he's got a bad scale, got damaged, and I'm watching it. Now, in the old days, if he had a bad scale and it got damaged, it would get fungus on it. That's goldfish. He's got nothing. So I'm letting it ride. Why treat him? Because the redox is very high, a 375 in this tank. The pH is about between 7.0 to 7.5. But one thing I did notice in here was the TDS is like 303. Now that's higher than all my other tanks. So the TDS is a little high in this tank. That's only total dissolved solids. So there could be a reason, because it's new and it could have a lot in there for solids that were in the substrate or whatever. I don't know, because now we have a mixture of sand and gravel is how I made this. And they seem to be okay with the sand and gravel mix. So from the plenum here on up, I have at least 3.5 inches from the plenum to here, at least 3.5 to 4 inches of substrate. And from here to the top, I have at least 12 inches of swimming space for the goldfish, which is more than enough for goldfish. You don't need a deep tank, but 12 inches from here to here. So this 40-gallon breeder does perfect for goldfish, because you do have 12 inches of space. So you do give up space in your aquarium, but what, another inch or two are going to make a big difference in how these guys are going to be swimming. They can swim another, 2 inches. Big deal. So I found out that by doing a plenum in a goldfish tank, and I did this purposely to show you, I use sand. Now, otherwise I would have used small gravel and then put that on top of the kitty litter with laterite. And you saw I have a substrate right here, this aqua substrate. That's to help with the plants, fertilize the plants without using dirt. I also use laterite. I also use kitty litter in here. And I finished it off full of sand. I have a redox of 375. That's what goldfish need. Very high quality, high oxidation water. Very good chemistry. Putting in a sponge filter is useless to me. It's for short term. But for long term, you're going to have to go through a lot of work by putting a little bit of sand and using sponge filters and a hang on the back filter. Goldfish are not cheap fish. So you got to spend the money. You got to go through the time. If you're not going to put the time and the money into these animals, especially goldfish, don't have them. Don't waste your time. They're just going to die. They're just going to get sick on you. Their fins are going to rot. They're going to get all kinds of problems, dropsy, bloatedness, everything else. You got to put the time in. You got to put and take care of them the way they want to be taken care of. And then you'll be successful like I was, having fish. In fact, when I left, I had fish in there, goldfish, because the guy who came and took my koi, he wouldn't take the goldfish. Those goldfish, after these fish got eaten by a blue heron, and what happened, a blue heron came in. Now, these guys are over 15, 17 years old, my ranch shoot, and he would come in and eat some when I was at work. And I would look in the pond, I would see some swimming around. Okay, you know, they're there. I'm not going to move all the plant that I had or anything just to see the goldfish, because if they're there, they're there. And then after 2 or 3 days, I noticed the gold, you know, they weren't coming up. I'm like, where are my ranch shoes? Well, blue heron came and got them. That's the only reason they died. But the smaller fish, they basically stayed at the bottom. Yeah, your what would be your arandas and your ryonkans, they all basically stayed at the bottom. They didn't get eaten. Okay, they were more like this guy's size. Okay, they all stayed at the bottom. So the blue heron didn't get them. But these guys were so friendly, they would come up to the top, not knowing any better. Because when I used to have pond tour, people would come over and these guys would come up to the top. People would pet them because they were like little pets. So they were very secure in their environment and would come up to be petted. So you can understand where blue heron would just wait there. I'm at work and have a meal for the next few days until they ate every line head and ranch shoe I had and gobbled them up. That's the only reason they died. They didn't die of any other reason. Does this mean you won't come up with the problem ever? No. That's the nature of the beast. Just like certain dogs and stuff have problems with them as they get older. Fish are going to have the same thing as they get older. They're going to have certain problems. But the only way I could keep goldfish alive is by doing this. By actually make a tank with a plenum, the way I've showed you, to get a canister filter and use BCB baskets and put the money into investment to keep the goldfish alive. And it seemed like all the sicknesses went away, all their problems went away. Another thing I found out is that goldfish do not like large food. I don't feed my goldfish food. I feed them the tropical food that I feed my tropical fish. The tetra, when I mix it all up, goldfish eat the same food. Because basically what we're looking for is vitamins, or they're getting the vitamins they need when you do feed them. Another thing you learn is goldfish, their stomach is no bigger than their eye. So when people feed goldfish, they overfeed them. Their stomach is no bigger than their eye. So if you feed them too much, you're going to wind up with problems. They don't need to eat that much. You got to have live plants in there. Goldfish like to eat algae, they like to eat plants. You've got to provide them with those two things. Duckweed is a good laxative. Another good thing to feed goldfish at least once a year is worms. Worms have bacteria in them. That bacteria gets into their gut. It helps the goldfish out. So get some live worms, cut them up, and feed the goldfish at least once a year to get that bacteria into their gut. That goes a long way with koi and goldfish of getting bacteria back into their gut from worms. The dirt and everything that's in the worms helps goldfish digestive system to work and keep up. Just like us, we got probiotics, right? No different than a goldfish. You want goldfish to do something, put a lot of duckweed in there so they can eat the duckweed. Give them plants to eat. That will help keep them going. Mainly though, to start out with goldfish, make sure you make a plenum. Make sure you use BCB baskets. For some reason, that clay does something with the koi and goldfish and keeps them going strong. And I'm not going to lie to you, yeah, these guys had a little red fin and stuff like that. But even this one, like I said, this Ryunkin here on the other side has a little damaged scale from, getting the fish out of the aquarium or whatever could happen. But nothing's happening with it. It's just a damaged scale. It'll either fall out or they'll grow a new one. There's no fungus, nothing growing on the scale, because there's something in the aquarium. There's something going on with a plenum and using BCB baskets and that clay that the goldfish like. There's something that Anoxic filtration system is doing that other filtrations do not do. Taking out ions. We do not understand the full science of what the Anoxic filtration does and why it works the way it does work. I don't understand the full science even myself, and I'm the one who developed it, because a lot of research has to be done. Research costs money. I don't have the money to keep researching why it reacts the way it does. Everybody has seen, right now, my 20-gallon aquarium is running off of 100% BCB basket. No bubblers, there's no sponges, there's very little gravel in there to even speak of. It's basically a bare tank running off of a canister filter with a BCB basket, because you don't clean these BCB out. You take them out, you put them off to the side, you clean your canister, you put them back in, and you're done. It's not like a sponge where you're wringing them out. You're not doing anything to the BCB. They leave them alone. When this woman made her ponds and everything, and I saw her wipe out, she could have made BCB baskets and put them in her pond and put even plants in them. That would have made a huge difference in the quality of her fish's lives. And I cannot explain why it makes a difference, but it did. And the proof was in the pudding. I was the same as her. My fish died. I did everything right, and that's what she says in her video. It's terrible when you have a hobby and you do everything right and your fish are still getting sick and dying. It's because there's elements that you are missing when you have goldfish, and I can't explain it even to you, that the Anoxic filtration provides that puts them in better health than just using a sponge filter or a hang on the back filter. There's something in what it's doing that provides for the goldfish so they can live years and years and years and not get sick, and not wind up with swim bladder, and not wind up with dropsy. There's something that the Anoxic filtration system provides that more research needs to be done. All I can tell you is I was in the same boat as her. Conventional filtration systems and goldfish don't work. They're for very advanced hobbyists. And I thought, but I never lost my love of them. And I've been having goldfish for 60 plus years. That was the very first fish I ever had, was goldfish. But now, since I understand how to keep goldfish alive and healthy, just like koi, by using an Anoxic filtration system, I'll never go back to a conventional filtration system ever again when I have goldfish. That's why I set this up for everybody, because these goldfish, they're not cheap. You can buy a lot of fish for one goldfish. And who wants a goldfish that can't keep alive? And people have these goldfish and they have the temperature up at 78. Goldfish don't need that. Goldfish, their temperature can fluctuate. They like cooler temperatures better than warmer temperatures. It's because of your filtration. It's because of their health is what is lacking. When I was over in China, you'd go into the parks in China and they had 6-foot diameter aquariums, round aquariums, cylinder aquariums in their parks. like 2 of them, and then you would have walkway. And these things were 8 foot high, full of goldfish, outside in China. You know, you don't see that here, but in China, goldfish are a big thing in China. Big aquariums in a park. Tower Grove Park in St. Louis is owned by the Botanical Gardens, Shaw's Gardens. And in that park, they have ponds that have been around since the World's Fair and everything in that park. And they filled those ponds up full of goldfish. But where did the goldfish reside? They reside in the very shallow part of the pond. And I thought that was strange because they had a square part of the pond. They had a square part with a big pond. And all the goldfish were sitting in the shallow part where the water couldn't have been more than this deep. That's where they all were. Hundreds and hundreds of goldfish, all fancy goldfish, not your comets. These were all fancy goldfish. And they were all in the shallow end of the pond instead of the deep end, because that's where they preferred to be, in a more shallow end than the deep end. That was something I observed in Tower Grove Park in St. Louis. So if you decide you want to have goldfish, you got to stop doing the repetitive things that everybody else is doing that aren't being successful. People aren't being honest with you. This woman was being honest with everybody. She did everything right, and it kept dying. That's the problem. People think, I'm going to get a sponge filter, I'm going to get a hang on the back filter, I'm going to put a little sand on my bottom. I'm going to be lucky. I'm going to be different. You're not. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. Even me, and I consider myself to be a highly skilled hobbyist, even I lost goldfish like crazy. Until I came up with the Anoxic filtration system. Then that was a game changer. The death of goldfish stopped. The sicknesses, like I said, damaged goldfish. They healed themselves. They didn't have to put any chemicals in. The whole game changed for ponds, for the goldfish, how healthy they were. It was a whole big game changer. So that's what this video is about. If you decide you want goldfish, you're going to have to put the money into a good filter. Get yourself a Eheim 2217, a good one, and make yourself a BCP basket, a big one inside there. Get yourself a tank where you can build yourself a nice plenum like this, just like I showed, and use some different layering, just like I showed you with the kitty litter and everything. You want to use sand, use sand. But you need to devise a system that the goldfish like, because the way we are doing it right now, just like this woman, and I saw the way she did it, sponge filters and everything, she finally threw the towel in. She's not going to have goldfish anymore. She said, maybe in the future I'll have goldfish, but she's given up on the fancy goldfish. And there's no reason why she should have given up, but she gave up on the fancy goldfish. That's it. She threw the towel in. And I would have thrown the towel in 30 plus years ago if I hadn't come up with the Anoxic filtration system. I would have thrown the towel in too, because yeah, she was right. You can't keep goldfish. I couldn't keep them either. And we had undergravel filters and everything I tried, 4 inches of gravel, and you had the bubblers and all the tubes and everything, and still couldn't keep them. You could do your water changes and everything else. Still couldn't keep the things alive. They'd wind up with all kinds of problems. And I spent good money on fish. So that's what this video is about. If you're watching this channel and you have goldfish, you need to rethink how you are taking care of them. It's going to take a little bit of money to take care of goldfish, to keep them for a long time, like me. I kept my goldfish for a long, long time, over a decade, without doing anything. And remember, these fish, they went through harsh winters of 30 below zero. They went through hot summers of 90 plus degrees. They went through a lot, and they had no problems with using an Anoxic filtration system. and they lived right in the filter. They had no problems. And most people say, well, you can't keep these delicate guys outside because they're so delicate that, the ranchus and stuff, oh, they can't winter out. Mine did. Mine did all the time. And in the spring, you could see, yeah, they had red in their fins, like the Ryonkins or your ranchus. They would have a little bit, the ranchus. Basically, your long fin ones would have more red in them. But as the temperature began to rise, the red went away. There was no problem. Nothing wrong with their fins. It was just from the cold coming up to the warm in springtime. And then when in fall, because I only did a water change twice a year, once in spring, once in fall. In fall, when I would empty the pond out, the fish were just like unbelievable colorful. Or in spring when I would empty it out, they were unbelievable colorful. It's like, wow. And these were cheap Petco goldfish. And their colors were unbelievable being in the pond. They went through stress, but they got over it. Something with the Anoxic filtration system, there's something that it does, which I can't explain, I wish I could, that helped the goldfish. So if you think about having goldfish, really I'm going to stress to you, think about making a nice plenum for them. Think about using a BCP baskets and a filter. Spend a little money and get rid of the damn sponges. Those things are they're good for breeders. They have their purpose, but they don't have their purpose when you're trying to deal with fish that may cost hundreds of dollars a piece. They don't have a place. You're cheaping out. Don't cheap out, is what I basically say. Otherwise, you're going to end up like I did and like she did. You're going to end up with dead fish, sick fish, and constantly dealing with swim bladder and constantly dealing with everything. Don't overfeed your fish. Remember, their stomach's no bigger than their eye. Just feed them a little bit of food and stay away from all that goldfish garbage that's hard, because once it gets soft, it blows up in their stomach. And it causes problems. So I always stick with the small food, very small food for them. Let them eat that if you're going to give them a supplement. Very small food. Remember, their stomach is no bigger than their eye. Soft foods even do better than hard foods. Plants, algae, anything that they can eat besides food that is processed food is better for them than the processed food. Make sure you keep plants because they've already eaten some of these plants. And that's what you want. You want them to nibble on the plants. You want them to get that into their gut. So I know I'm being repetitive here, but I'm just trying to stress the importance of using a system like this versus just going with sponge filters and thinking you're going to come out with better results than the next person did. So that's it with this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm just telling you the truth. I was in the same boat as her. I was losing fish too. It's very distraughting when you lose fish and you're doing everything right and they're still getting sick, they're still dying, they're still coming up with problems. And finally, you throw the towel and say, that's it with goldfish. And you don't have to. You just need to stop thinking and doing repetitive failure and start thinking something else. We now have the technology, we now have the knowledge of an Anoxic filtration system that can keep these animals alive. Use it. If you want to cheap out, don't buy the animals then. Don't buy them. Stick with your little, tropical fish. Okay, until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Thank you very much for watching.